It's a pleasure to welcome everyone to our Interface of Reality Marathon. Today, we'll discuss the true nature of reality, why we often claim that everything around us is an illusion, how to actively manage your reality, and perhaps why we might not be able to achieve that at this very moment. Tomorrow we will reconvene for our second session. Alexander Kozin, one of our lead instructors, will be meeting with you. You'll engage in a conversation about how to deepen your perception of this reality, how to access its more subtle, fine vibrational layers, and how to perceive this reality from a different vantage point, leading to further insights and move towards so-called full realization enlightenment. We'll be discussing this again today, so please make sure you don't miss our very important meeting tomorrow. Be sure to come. It truly complements today's material and is a complete holistic system. And if you only managed to grasp some information yesterday or just today, it's highly improbable that you'll develop a complete picture or a full understanding of the mechanism we're discussing. And we are discussing the interface of reality, which means understanding exactly what it is and learning how to effectively manage it. And for those unfamiliar with me, my name is Sergei Pyankov, and I'm one of the leaders of our team. In my time, I traveled extensively around the world to understand how our world is organized. I was truly eager to comprehend the structure of the universe. I used to study Vedic culture and scriptures in depth. I've lived in India, resided in Bali, practiced Qigong in the Philippines, and even lived with shamans in Peru. I gathered this very information that we are going to discuss today, piece by piece, like a puzzle, drawing from ancient cultures and the real-life experiences of individuals who didn't just intellectually grasp these concepts but genuinely lived them, understanding how they interact with this world. I absorbed and ravenously consumed this experience everywhere. I traveled all over the world and spent a lot of my resources, finances, and time, and ultimately I came to the conclusion that once I became familiar with this particular methodology, the one I'll be sharing with you all today, I realized that this puzzle, it truly came together in the end, forming a single, exceptionally clear, and most interestingly, a very straightforward and simple picture that offers answers to every question. Because the majority, they sometimes lose their true essence beneath layers of specific terminology, cultural influences, and historical periods. Instead, they often devolve into mere rituals or what we now perceive as purely spiritual, rather than maintaining their original profound meaning, as I've observed across various traditions and cultures. Spiritual tourism. What I mean is, it's not genuine spiritual work, nor is it an authentic spiritual journey. Instead, it might be what you'd call a superficial display of spirituality. For example, I might appear serene and virtuous, but the moment something annoys me, I could easily lose my temper and treat someone rudely. We will be talking with you today about a complete picture. And I, as a rule, generally enjoy using the analogy of an incubator and an egg when we discuss this topic. However, today we'll be exploring a different analogy that very comprehensively and completely illuminates, among other things, how our universe is genuinely structured. And I would like to urge you to approach this not merely as just another concept, but rather as something much more significant. The core of it is the knowledge I'm going to share with you today, my enlightened teacher transmits to me, and I in turn share it with all of you. This isn't something invented, rather it's been known for thousands of years across various cultures, to numerous teachers, and to many different movements. However, all of this is fragmented, and certain cultural layers prevent a holistic understanding from being put together. Today, we'll try to do that in simple, understandable language so that all the pieces of the puzzle come together for everyone. Alright, if everyone is prepared, then let's begin discussing this topic. Today I'll be drawing. I've already prepared a small sketch, but before we get started, I'd like us to align our understanding just a bit. It's probably no secret to anyone in the modern world that everything around us is energy. So your body is composed of energy, all the surrounding objects, the very air we breathe, everything is made up of molecules, and these molecules are formed from atoms, then elementary particles. All of this around us constitutes what physicists call the unified quantum field, or what Buddha referred to as living emptiness. So, everything around us is essentially energy. This is what various cultures have referred to as chi, prana, or light. Isn't that right? Everything around us is a unified energy field. And, as a rule, for a person, this is the foundation, the basis. That is, most of us have either heard, know, or already. have encountered this info many times. For instance, I did Qigong in the Philippines. So Qi is energy, Gong is control, Qigong is energy control, or pranayama, right? So breathing. When you do breathing exercises, you're not just inhaling air, but this energy, a certain prana. And as a rule, people only have fragmented knowledge about this. Qigong developed in China, right? It's for managing energy, and pranayama manages it so. But what stands behind all this? As a rule, there's no complete picture. And a person asks a logical question, so what's in it for me? I mean, what exactly does this offer me? Yes, everything around us is energy. And yes, I am well aware of that. Yes, I even went to yoga, I also went to Qigong, and I practiced pranayama. Well, in my life, it didn't help me become any happier or more joyful. Maybe for a brief time, but then everything just returns to square one. So what good is this information to me? What does it truly provide? But in reality, fundamentally, if you truly understand this on a deep level, not merely as a concept, assuming that everything around you is indeed energy, yet you just can't feel it. But if you truly allow yourself to embrace the profound understanding that the reality enveloping you is a vibrant, living essence that genuinely responds to your intentions and actions, enabling you to effectively manage your reality. What transformative impact does this realization have? At the very least, this fundamentally alters what Buddha stated in his work, the Kamala Sutta. Therein, he declared that to truly grasp the truth, one must scrutinize and challenge all traditions, all doctrines, all schools of thought, and indeed all your preconceived notions and perceptions about everything. So the reality around you is one where anything is possible. You can manifest it yourself by your own free will, by your own conscious intention, but for some reason it just doesn't seem to happen. And this fundamental understanding that this energy surrounds us already enables you to begin questioning your established beliefs about the functioning of the world, your own identity, and what you are truly capable or incapable of achieving. This is because typically people are instructed or advised to, for instance, establish some kind of business. He says, oh no, I don't have any money, I have a job, I have debt, I have a family and kids. How is that even possible? So a person with these beliefs, with their own limitations, they confine themselves to this self-made box and cannot conceive of or even entertain the notion that they possess the ability to create it. You might have, or maybe even already seen, there's a certain video clip making its rounds on the internet. There's an experiment which is really quite amusing. It involves a small chick. And you know, when a chick hatches, whatever it first sees, it thinks is its mother. Scientists did an experiment. After the chick hatched, the very first thing they introduced it to was a robot. Just a small mechanical little box, you know. So what it does is it moves around in a somewhat random, chaotic way within a particular sector, traversing that area. And the chick, you know, sees this little mechanical box moving about, and it perceives the very first thing it lays eyes on to be its mother. And he really, really wants to be near this robot. And the scientists, those merciless individuals, take this chick and place it behind a glass barrier so it can't touch the robot. The chick then begins to cry out very piteously and distressed, "Mother, mother, where are you? I long to be with you." He sees her behind the glass, but he can't reach her because he's stuck behind it. And then, a miracle. This robot, which is meant to move randomly and chaotically, being nothing more than a programmed metallic device, then surprisingly begins to shift its movements progressively closer to the little chick. It starts getting closer and closer to the chick, and eventually it ends up pretty much just circling around him. So it turns out that the chick, simply through its intention and a very strong, sincere desire, a very strong, sincere, pure desire, only this newborn, newly hatched chick can influence matter, specifically the robot, which should be moving according to completely different principles. And as you can understand, it might seem that I am an adult, but I still fall a little short compared to the chick in terms of what it was able to accomplish. That is, for some reason, I can't even influence a robot in my life, but to fulfill some of my elementary wishes, the intentions that I would ultimately like to bring into reality and achieve. Ultimately, we all just want to be joyful, happy, and filled with purpose. And we ask ourselves, well, if everything around us is truly energy, and even a small chick can influence this quantum field, then what exactly is wrong with me? Why am I unable to do the same? After all, I know that neurophysiologists state that within my eyes there are merely 3 color receptors, and this is the place where it transitions nerve endings into the brain. There is no photoreceptors. So everything we perceive, these colorless atoms, like the blue sky, the green grass, it's all reconstructed by the brain. We're essentially living in this reconstructed reality. This means the brain engages areas of imagination, memory, and certain ideas to recreate the reality that we actually perceive. Then why can't I reconstruct it the way I truly wish to? And that's exactly what we'll talk about today. As I've mentioned before, I particularly like to use the example of a cocoon or an egg specifically when a chick hatches, and then many of you have probably already heard that example. So today, I've decided to provide you with a different one that truly reflects our material reality and the fundamental structure of the universe. To help illustrate this, let's even do a little drawing. Let's imagine that everything we see and perceive around us, and basically everything that exists, is actually within us. This is what acts like a screen. Almost like a film. You know, like an old film strip, or the kind of film used in cameras. Yes, that kind of film. And what's the underlying principle of this film? Basically, light passes through it from some source. Let's even draw it. But it's not a projector. I'll just draw an eye instead of a projector here. And from it, the light is projected onto this screen. And accordingly, everything that is displayed on the screen, there's an image that prevents the light from passing through. That's how a film strip works. So, in order for us to truly see something in a movie, on the film, some image that blocks the light. And so, this light then refracts, and in this way the image appears. So, instead of using the term projector, some might refer to it as the source, others as the absolute, and still others as Atman. Let's use the word consciousness. Consciousness. A unified, singular, indivisible consciousness that perceives through every eye in the world, one with which nothing has ever occurred. It exists beyond the confines of time and space, is eternally infinite, and cannot possibly be grasped or comprehended by the intellect alone. And through this very consciousness, this absolute being, light truly emanates from it, radiating outward. Light goes. This is precisely the energy we were discussing. Chi, chi, prana. Yes, this light. Let's simply refer to it as... It then directly lands on the screen. Each and every single one of us has a screen just like this inside of us that's formed from our own. As a rule, perceptions. I'll shorten it so I don't write too much. Perceptions. What else? Fears. And complexes? Complexes, fears, complexes, perceptions. What else? Some behavior patterns. So, observe now, following the principle of that film strip, this light here. It doesn't pass through our individual perceptions, our fears, our complexes, our established patterns, or our behavior patterns. For instance, I aspire to launch a new business venture, yet I'm apprehensive about resigning from my current employment. How will I provide for my children? What if my efforts are unsuccessful? What if I end up in financial ruin? Or perhaps I'd prefer to relocate to a new home or city. But I'm afraid because all my acquaintances are right here. In other words, as a general rule, we are all preoccupied with concerns about the future and regrettably with certain notions or concepts about the past. Our mind, it constantly moves back and forth, consuming a lot of that precious energy, that very light. And so, it's as if these very spots on this specific screen are effectively blocking the light from being able to pass through it. Now, a logical question arises. Why is it set up this way? What kind of principle is this? And the fact of the matter is that this very light, this wise living energy, can also be referred to by the same term, love. It's just that the word love itself comes with a lot of associated stereotypes. It seems like it's something very tender, very loving, but it's just a powerful force, this light, this powerful force, this loving attention. And what does it do? It shows you clearly, look, See, the light isn't passing through here. Here, you have the notion that you are, for instance, the most intelligent. But if you are the smartest, there will always be fools around you. And you go around thinking and saying, why are these people so unfinished? They can't even carry out a simple assignment. And I feel like I'm special, the smartest person around. Why are there so many foolish people in the world? And why is that? Because there's this perception that I am the smartest one around. So this light will reveal this very concept to you. It will continually observe and demonstrate it. Look, as long as you have this concept, there will always be fools around. It will show your patterns and complexes. What exactly will happen if I say this? And what will they even think of me? And this is what generally goes through someone's mind when they want to make their presence felt in this world. They really want to manifest this light. They want to make some changes in this reality, and they want to structure it, but something holds them back. That something is rooted in their internal limitations and inherent patterns. And typically this energy in our lives keeps flowing, continually revealing more and more of these ingrained patterns and complexes, especially if an individual chooses to do nothing to address them. You know, when can a person truly disengage from this screen the most? Most people, as a rule, tend to live with their heads constantly down, completely and totally engrossed in this screen. They are completely immersed in it, staring directly, as if they don't even perceive the screen itself, but are solely focused on this sphere. So their full attention and perception are entirely engrossed in the mental image, caught up in thoughts like, I won't succeed, or I'm too afraid to do this. They also dwell on, what if, and what will people think of me? And that's it. A person just keeps stewing all of this in their thought mixer. So their complete focus is here. If an individual does not direct their attention, even slightly, to detach from this screen, to recognize that their identity is not defined by their fears, beliefs, or ingrained patterns, but rather this is simply wise, living life, everything around is energy, yes, all concepts, everything needs to be questioned. And this energy, all my ideas about everything, it constantly shows me. And this wise and living energy of life which flows simply encounters these obstacles. If a person doesn't want to look towards the source, towards consciousness, to direct their attention, to tear it away from their own experiences, then circumstances will tear it away for them. Well, a highly familiar example certainly that everyone recognizes is that a person typically directs their attention away from the screen when some sort of tragedy occurs. When, God forbid, someone passes away or is suddenly afflicted with a terminal illness. All these trivial quarrels, petty bickering, discussions about who got what car, who received a promotion at work, or where I should go for a vacation, all of that retreats to the background, along with all my anxieties and insecurities because something else occurred. That is to say, I was completely pulled away from this scene. If I do not personally undertake the inner work to truly understand how to detach myself from it, now let's discuss how one can detach from it, especially if things might lead to such a dramatic outcome. This is because energy is wise and alive, isn't it? To it, there's no distinction between good or bad. It doesn't care how to detach you from your perceptions. What's important is that light passes through. What's important is that energy flows through you into this world. If you don't do this work yourself, then, as a general rule, internal struggles, discomfort, and even depression typically emerge as the initial consequences. A person attempts to run away from this and they start overeating, is that right? Those who like sweets, or God forbid, engage in alcohol abuse, drug use, or other unhealthy habits and so on. This means that some people ride motorcycles, others skydive, and still others go to rock concerts. A person tries in every way to feel alive, to experience the present moment, so that life, energy, and light flow through them, enabling them to stop thinking, even for a second. When I sing, when I dance, when I'm creating, I'm not thinking at all. And that's why people really love to engage in some kind of creative activity. We all strive to be where we feel good, where we are fully alive, and where we are not trapped in all these mental experiences, this inner screen of our minds. And if we're no longer satisfied with just some kind of one-off creative activity, going on a picnic, getting out into nature, engaging in sports, then typically it means your spiritual age has already reached a mature state, indicating that this consciousness wishes to channel more energy through you. And your maturity no longer permits you to remain confined within this particular perception. You really need to disidentify with it. And the first subject we're addressing and discussing with you today is the very concept and understanding itself that we're going to explore. Simply the knowledge of how the universe functions, about how there's no one to blame. My wife is constantly scolding me, always nagging me. Our relationship isn't very good, my boss is an absolute idiot. The very moment you find yourself blaming the external circumstances for certain situations in your life, you essentially fall into victimhood. Your complete and utter attention is focused right here. If you acknowledge that everything happening in your life is a result you've brought about through your own choices, and that this world, this entire universe, this consciousness, it simply reveals to you where the light is unable to pass through. So any discomfort becomes an immediate indication that somewhere I am obstructing it or not allowing this life to fully flow through me. This specific realization alone is what truly allows you to disidentify from what is presented. You need to disidentify, and if we were to include a very important element here, it would be your attitude. That is, your attitude towards the situation fundamentally changes. Attitude, exactly. It can fundamentally change it. Your attitude creates your reality. Take a look. And how do you determine if you're letting this life energy flow through you or not while washing dishes? So, you're standing there, washing dishes. And for example, you're washing them and thinking, ugh, I wish I could just finish this and get it over with. For instance, let's say I'm a woman, right? I cooked so much, my husband, the kids came home from school, from work, quickly ate everything, didn't even really say thank you, and just dumped everything in the sink. And here I am, standing and washing dishes, when I'd much rather be watching a TV series or going out with my friends. And this is exactly what I'm doing with that kind of attitude. So, you're stuck in your head, and the energy isn't flowing. If you transform your mindset about washing dishes into one that says, I am committed to doing this in the most excellent manner possible. This too is an action. It's also a way of structuring reality, even if it's simple, mundane, something I might do every day. Nevertheless, I will do it as well as I possibly can because, you see, I desire to imbue this world with this kind of love. This includes a loving focus, my own heartfelt attention, and a particular approach too. Your every action, whether it's a business project, washing the dishes, or even just having a simple conversation. So by adjusting your mindset, you begin to reshape reality, provided you understand the underlying principle. So when you understand the principle, you can direct your attention and ask yourself, oh, why am I standing here feeling so discontented? I can change my feelings about this right away. And through that process, you do indeed shift your perspective. And at that moment, energy flows through you, which then begins to harmonize all areas of your life, including your body. And it essentially begins to restructure this quantum soup in a completely new and different way. And this is the very first and essential step that you need to take, continually changing it and consistently, persistently practicing with it. Because the next and second step, as you may already understand, is to really strengthen this attitude. So when you grasp this principle, you're able to withdraw your attention from this very screen, even when your focus is entirely fixated on it, and then redirect it somewhere else. For instance, let's start by moving it to this area. So if we were to imagine it as an eye there, but you could draw it as a little person. I just don't draw very well, so I won't scare you with my little people, but shift it as an eye. And you understand that you are no longer just floating around somewhere, right? You realize that. And you perceive that, in essence, your life on your inner screen is constantly swirling with different thoughts about the past, about the future. The mind is always thinking something. Well, okay, but why do you need to feed it with your attention? You just remove it from there. How? It's difficult to do because, as a rule, people don't have that kind of experience. And to achieve that, you must shift your attention to something different. But to what precisely? And you need to direct it to your heart. But how exactly do you achieve that? It is through gratitude. Gratitude. Gratitude, heartfelt warmth and joy. So it's that feeling when you have this energy flowing from the source, loving, right? and accordingly you infuse your attention with loving tones, meaning you express gratitude for everything you have received. Oh, today someone cut me off on the road, and out of habit I started yelling, "Ugh, they just can't drive." I cursed at that person, but then suddenly I snapped right out of it. What exactly was I doing? And I brought my attention back. The mind continues to fuss. The mind keeps saying, they just bought all these cars and simply showed up here, invading our space. However, it continues to speak, but you bring your attention into your heart and begin to give thanks and gratitude for this source, this consciousness, for revealing to you through the situation that you are prone to irritation, that you are very wrathful, that it truly resides within you, that on your screen this anger, this irritation is already there. It exists, it never disappeared, it didn't arrive from an external place, it's deep inside you. And this light, it showed you this, and you realized it. And you begin to feel truly grateful for it. You think, oh, how wonderful that I was able to see this. How wonderful that this wise living consciousness revealed to me exactly where I am imperfect. Now I can react in a completely different manner. Initially, this is very challenging. But as you start to train this, you change your attitude more and more. You start to feel more gratitude for life itself, just for the fact that it exists. And at that very moment in your life, miraculously, just as the robot was drawn to the chicken, other situations begin to be attracted to you, almost as if by magic. People will stop cutting you off while driving. Passing cars will stop splashing dirty water from puddles on you. Partners will stop abandoning you and taking your money, and so forth. So other people, different situations, and life circumstances are suddenly attracted to you. You get lucky. Why? Because consciousness understands that you are maturing, that you are growing wiser, that you are starting to direct your attention there, and your trajectory of movement begins to delve into the depth of perception of this reality moving towards the absolute. You begin, at the very least, by directing your loving attention there, expressing gratitude for the mere existence of life and for how it continuously shows you your own imperfections. And that is precisely when your reality begins to transform. Excellent. We've pretty much covered that. If there are any questions, I'll answer them a bit later. But to give you the full picture, once again. For example, we understand how this works, and let's say we've even heard it before. We try to change our attitude, but it doesn't work. We give gratitude for everything. But how can one truly express gratitude if life has hit rock bottom? All around, there are nothing but constant suffering. I'm depressed, I have no money, I have debts, my husband is not happy. What am I supposed to do? How can I truly be grateful for all of this, Sergey? Please tell me, all of this seems quite understandable, yet it's practically not applicable whatsoever. Then we will move on, I'll even draw it, to the third step. So that it's simpler and easier for you. The mechanism is really very simple and straightforward. The third thing you must do, I'll draw a little picture of a person. Man. He's got these little legs. Some kind of square legs, actually. Here he is, a smiling little man. And with ears and with hair. Content. Now look, each of us is given a physical body. And if we're going to talk about the actual interface of reality, well, when you start to move your attention away from this very screen, that is, this particular screen, the internal screen that's constantly spinning in your head, your attention, for a typical person, is usually directed at this screen. Past, future, fears, insecurities, templates, all in the mind. So attention is in the mind. And if you begin to withdraw your attention from that place and bring it into your body, that is, into this heartfelt warmth center, or in general, to bring your attention into the body, just direct it there. The easiest way to start is to keep it in your chest center. A warmth, a burning sensation begins to ignite there. However, if you feel nothing at all, your essential task is simply to draw your attention into the body. Your body is always present, right here and now. It always exists in the present moment. In that present moment, there is always more energy and more of this light. This means our inner nature, it immediately starts to work. And psychophysics starts to recover, self-regulation happens, all processes in the body. You don't have control over how your gastric juice is generated or how your gallbladder functions. So all of this works as our inner nature. All of this works due to biochemical and electrical processes which are controlled by the brain. When you direct your attention not to some abstract screen of your mental images, emotions and feelings, then this very energy begins to self-regulate, rectifying what needs correction within itself. So let's go over this step by step once again. The first stage is when you understand and change your attitude towards what is. Second, you start to show gratitude for life, for its very existence. However, given the challenging nature of this endeavor, you naturally begin to utilize your physical body as a stabilizing anchor. Your body, direct your attention there. And at this moment, it's not necessary for you to personally attempt to eliminate these predetermined templates and establish patterns on your own. Oh, I really dislike being very wrathful or exceptionally timid. I need to find a way to eliminate this. As soon as you start trying to get rid of it, your attention is back here again, and you're trying with one little program. I don't like that I'm timid. You're trying to get rid of your shyness here, inside this screen. That's very far from reality, from what's truly real. It's an illusion. And to break free from this illusion, you must direct your attention to what is truly more real, and that is your very own body. This is also part of space, also part of this absolute. It's not somewhere out there. We draw it, right here. There we drew this little eye. That there is a certain source, and light comes from it, and it's, well, somewhere out there, and I need to get there. No, that's not quite right. It just needs to be shown for the mind to grasp the concept. But ultimately, it's not a distant place or time. It's right here, right now. We exist within it, and we are composed of it. It's simply that we don't know how to conduct this energy through ourselves. And as soon as you direct your attention to what is occurring right here, right now, which means you focus your attention on this energy, this very space, and this ultimate source. However, extending your attention into space typically proves challenging for novices. Achieving this requires dedicated and professional practice. Therefore, we organize retreats and courses where we delve more deeply and professionally into working with space. This becomes the fourth step for those who have already truly mastered their attention within the body. That is with this energy. He begins to control it, begins to structure it with his intention. But to transition to this next step, it's crucial to understand that the moment you feel any sign of discomfort, or perhaps you're simply out on a morning jog, for instance, and your mind is preoccupied with thoughts, and then suddenly you caught yourself in that thought. And once this realization dawns, at that very moment you're presented with a choice to direct your attention to what is unfolding directly in the present. For example, listen to the sounds of the world around you. Hold your breath, direct your attention to your breathing or your heart. That is, simply direct it into your body and let it freely wander there. It will regulate itself. For this purpose, there are specific practices that we teach and examine in a professional manner. So, within the scope of our current broadcast, our meeting today, we won't be able to conduct a practice session with you and break down a practice, but if you want to professionally engage in it, please come and receive training. Because what we're talking about, these initial 3 stages, you are able to perform them on your own. But it truly is very difficult. It's almost like, if to draw a lid right here in this spot. And draw the handles. It's like a peculiar type of pot, and inside it a bubbling soup of blocks and clamps churns, preventing the light from passing through. And all our attention, it's boiling here and it's a hard bottom, a hard bottom. So I'm just rubbing the bottom of this pot, and it's quite a challenge to constantly bring your attention back to the here and now. I get carried away again, and then I begin to criticize myself for not being able to manage it. And in the end, I simply gave up, completely surrendered, thinking, this technique is just not working, this method is ineffective, and I'm not succeeding with anything. I'll probably go to a bar, or perhaps I'll delve into exploring some alternative methods instead. And the person begins to rush around trying one thing, another, then a third, a fifth, a tenth. In short, if you really want to achieve this, shift your assembly point, your attention towards the source, towards the absolute, to perceive this reality differently, to truly utilize this interface. Our body, that's the interface, that's its remote control. So once you've truly mastered using your body, which means fully engaging your attention, you'll discover so much life within it, so many things you never noticed before. Right now, if you pay attention to, say, your finger, both those watching us on recording or those who are with us live, right now just focus your attention on your finger. Don't be lazy, actually do it. Those watching the recording, pause it and direct your attention to your finger. Suddenly, you might start to feel some warmth, pressure, or a tingling sensation in that spot. You weren't noticing it just moments ago. But why? It was always present, yet your attention wasn't there. Your attention was entirely focused on what you were seeing, totally engrossed in the screen. Now you're listening to me. Right now, continue listening and keep part of your attention focused on your body. This is something you can begin doing immediately, and you will suddenly start to perceive more of the sounds that are occurring in your surroundings. A car drove past the window. There's a tram rattling, and the neighbors make noise. And you begin to perceive more and more of your surrounding environment. You kind of just suddenly find yourself present by yourself without doing anything specifically for it, or particularly stressing yourself out. However, you are now fully present in the moment, and a greater amount of this energy is already flowing and passing through you. But to truly establish yourself in this state and make progress here, it really requires you to fundamentally resolve the issue and engage with it professionally. If that is truly your intention, then our team will provide you with all the possibilities and opportunities. The other thing is, you still need to get through the selection process and an interview. How much do you truly desire this? However, today we will be discussing, among other things, what comes next. Tomorrow, you and Alexander will delve into the specifics during your meeting, discussing precisely how to truly enter this depth of perception of the absolute professionally. What is needed for that? What kinds of tools are utilized? And how is it accomplished in the modern world? Because if we consider the saints or the renowned enlightened masters from the past, they followed their unique paths. However, in today's modern world, where our attention is continuously drawn to phones and televisions, the sheer volume of information is so overwhelming that even a trained individual might find it impossible to accumulate so much stress throughout the day that they are forced to, through dedicated practice or meditation, cleanse and clear out only what they have managed to accumulate once more. And they can't make any progress or shift at all unless they actively engage with it. So let's go back to what we were just discussing. So the next significant step involves working with space. What does that imply? Your physical body is a part of space as well. It's easiest to work through it because you feel it well. However, it is also possible to work through the immediate space that surrounds you. What within your immediate surroundings, in your personal universe, your very own reality, can truly provide a perceptible response that you are able to notice? If you just sit there and attempt to move a table using telekinesis, you could train for many, many years. Yet, you still might not succeed, right? It's kind of like, remember in the movie The Matrix, there was a moment when Neo came to the Oracle and a young boy was sitting there with a spoon. That famous, the famous spoon scene. He says, how do you bend well? How do you bend this spoon? He says, it's impossible to bend the spoon. You have to understand that there is no spoon. In other words, if you are attempting to work with your given space, trying to physically move a table, that is, you need to shift to a different level of perception, to a different level of interaction with this space, with this life so that you can possess abilities like telekinesis or levitation and so forth. Let me repeat, in order to truly work with space, it's simply not enough to merely understand these concepts or to just train your attention like trying to bend a spoon, much like they did in the movie The Matrix. So, to bend a spoon, you must enter into a different kind of interaction with space, specifically with the more subtle layers of perceiving this life. Tomorrow, you will discuss how to accomplish this. Only then will you truly be able to effectively work with the material world. But as our teacher says, he tells us, when you learn how to change matter, you won't even desire to do so, because you'll realize how utterly perfect everything here truly is. Every leaf, every flower is in its place, every raindrop falls exactly where it needs to. And you will hardly want to change matter, unless of course it proves to be expedient. Why am I telling you all of this, you might ask? It is because when it comes to dealing with this tangible, solid matter, it's still very much like science fiction for us. So, to do that, one needs to move closer to the absolute, to interact with the world in a different manner. But what can we already do with our own space? Indeed, we are already capable of that. Since we can't get a response from a table or bend a spoon that we are unable to bend, what can we do? We can interact with living people. They're also part of space. Just as your body is part of space, so are the people around you. And usually your closest typically highlight to you the most painful representations and mental images of your life, making them apparent. But that person is not to blame. It's just that the space, through people, reveals to you where light doesn't penetrate, showing that you're either excessively prone to irritation or overly timid, or perhaps you just tend to lash out at everyone the moment someone touches upon your childhood trauma. The individual is not to blame. And the one who might have given you that childhood trauma is most likely not to blame for it anymore. But you can start working with this space with gratitude and heartfelt warmth. And with the people who surround you, your loved ones, your family, your children, your parents, your husbands and your wives, you can begin to build this heartfelt connection. This means a connection not on an intellectual plane. We live life together and support one another. We're learning to interact not like neighbors, but as a soul to soul, establishing a kind of deep, heartfelt connection and channeling your loving attention towards other individuals. And that's completely different. This already implies that you are a more mature individual, someone who understands the governing principles of this world and is prepared to engage with it in a new and different way. Why? Because all the previous stages involve a sort of a loop within the practices themselves. Well, okay, I already know all of this. I'll make sure to meditate regularly, and I'll also practice silence. There are many different meditation techniques and mindfulness practices that help me connect more closely to the source. But in reality, this issue isn't solved by practices. It is not resolved by merely altering your attitude, expressing gratitude, or returning your attention to your body. This will make you feel much better, more harmonious. It's possible that you will begin to attract various other situations, but that's the absolute maximum you can anticipate. So, if you genuinely wish to shift your assembly point and completely detach from all past behavioral programs and conceptualizations, you simply need to discard them all. Much like emptying the cup. And not leaving any more templates, patterns for the next life. So, if you really want to completely flip this entire situation around and truly see that this very screen, which we have drawn, just becomes totally white. Light brightens and illuminates everything. This is called enlightenment. Who truly wants a deep awakening have to be free of impurities. Light should pass freely through them, screen in this example. In other words, nothing should stay. So, to accomplish this, to genuinely attain enlightenment in this life, not at some distant point in the future, merely engaging in practices won't be sufficient. You need to allow your loving attention and service to freely flow into this world. What we discussed about the dishes example, that's also a kind of service, a way of allowing the light, this loving energy, to permeate the space. But usually that's not quite sufficient for individuals who tune in and watch broadcasts of this nature, because most likely you have people around, children, relatives, loved ones, colleagues at work, who need your attention, loving attention, caring attention, tender attention. And when you start providing it to them, they begin to flourish, the surrounding space transforms, and you yourself evolve, allowing an increasing amount of light to flow through you. And if we are talking about working with space, then first and foremost we are talking about this very concept of service. But as a rule, people have many preconceived notions about what service truly means. They immediately fall into the need to help program, running around to organize volunteer organizations, cleaning up stairs, doing stuff like that. This kind of person says, I'm already helping people. Why am I still so unhappy? Because a person acts with different internal approach. So remember, attitude is key. So if I want to be recognized and thanked for what I do, if I want to be perceived as good, that behavior comes from a desire for approval, from that goody two-shoes program within, not from genuine selflessness. I simply extend my loving attention to the world around me because it is genuinely what I desire to do. This light flows through me, and it actually fills up all of my structures and all of my subtle bodies. This is because your emotional body, your astral body, is made up of these particular layers of this inner screen. In other words, our emotions that surface and prevent this energy from flowing through, these also reside in some of our inner subtle bodies, on our astral mental bodies and so forth. And all these bodies, all these screens must be thoroughly cleansed. They're meant for light to pass through them freely. If you only meditate, this will take years to achieve. Just like monks in Tibet, they sit there for 20 years and cleanse it in difficult conditions, so that all desires fall away. Right. In the Himalayas where it's cold, so they can dry a towel on themselves with their body heat. Who's ready for that now? Not many are ready. Therefore, the panacea for everything that is, these are auxiliary things, like practice and meditation, bringing attention back to the here and now. And the ultimate solution for everything is when you start to transmit this energy. Tomorrow with Sasha, you'll talk about how to amplify this, how to truly make it happen. Because today I'm giving you more of a theoretical, fundamental, basic concept. Tomorrow, you'll delve into the additional elements required to truly facilitate this process, ensuring that this screen truly becomes clear, so that this enlightenment, samadhi, occurs and becomes stable, and so you can simply live a happy, fulfilling life. Through you, this life energy pulsed. You felt truly alive and lived 100%. This means typically a person that desires this, regardless of how people refer to it. We all inherently seek happiness. And this loving source, this absolute, is precisely that happiness, within which there is a total peace. There is always a profound, deep sense of peace and presence within it, and within that, immense power of colossal proportions capable of transforming this reality. And you will find that it is structured in a completely different way. But right now, we're only discussing what can be expressed verbally. When we shift an assembly point beyond these mental screens, words become futile there. It becomes a different experience altogether. It's something completely different. And how do we even begin to talk about that? That's a topic for a completely different discussion. And Eigel asks, but what about when brilliant ideas strike you during a run, or when you visualize to manifest your desires? When can you do these things if your attention is meant to be focused on your body? Excellent question, Eigel. Now look, I'll draw a little more for you to answer this question. So, how is it actually arranged? You're saying, even with two colors like these probably. Okay, well, not entirely accurate, but that's not the point. Look, at some point, you realized you were lost in thoughts, had drifted off, were not here, not now, but in fantasies, illusions, or representations of the past or future. This specific moment when you have a recollection, Recollection is a pivotal point, a point of no return. It does not depend on you at this moment. So most likely, it's just that at some point you remembered, but at that moment you have a choice. Choice is to shift attention to your body. Once attention shifts to your body, this energy is activated, a mechanism where, roughly speaking, the light itself is directed to where you have blocks or tension in your body, to remove them, or perhaps to cleanse your mental templates, or to balance your emotional state, and to harmonize your subtle bodies. So here, the energy flows and circulates as it should. Just as your lymph fluid circulates throughout your entire body, you cannot direct it to a specific place. It simply flows as it is meant to. And it is precisely at this moment that brilliant ideas and sound thoughts are able to come forth. This means that from a pure perception that is brighter, more luminous ideas will come to you, and it will be wonderful. At the beginning of our broadcast, we mentioned that if you have a pen, a notebook, or something to jot down notes, you always have your phone with you anyway. You can briefly dictate the idea to yourself or write it down, but writing is better. When you write by hand, it engages different areas. Brain neurons activate for recollection. You've captured these bright ideas, and at the same time, your attention was in your body. It's self-evident. It's like a certain clarity, a clear understanding. You don't need to think for this. This mind chatter has nothing to do with it here. This destructive thinking, it's just like a certain realization happening. Listen, I should have done this a long time ago. Oh, I get it. I captured it so my mind wouldn't blur it out later, and I kept going, while jogging, right? So, at a particular moment in time, at a specific point, this psychophysics then commences. This energy starts to cleanse your psychophysics. Especially in meditation, when you're not just jogging, but purposefully sitting and practicing. During our courses, we engage in meditation, and we make it clear to our students that their psychophysics begins to undergo a cleansing process, which leads to the expulsion of various thoughts. In essence, all sorts of thoughts start to emerge from within. You've flown off somewhere again at that moment. Well, you're thinking something, you don't even realize it. But this is your body starting to release stress during meditation. It's simply the mental clutter that you have accumulated, like you were watching TV series or someone at work really angered you, and now you're thinking what a scoundrel that person is. And then, all of a sudden, alongside these very thoughts, physical activity itself commences. Yes, physical activity truly begins. Mental activity, physical activity, and at some point you'll find yourself back in this cycle of thoughts, of physical sensations. You'll come back to this memory once more. Oh, you remembered again. And you have another chance to bring focus back to your body. I won't go into detail now. There are many nuances here, to be honest. This is from our basic course. We have a fundamental basic course, and it's named the Basic Course. On it, in just 5 lessons, we literally give you practice so that you can first try it out, because this information remains conceptual until you've actually tried it. As soon as you start experiencing it for yourself, you gain sensory experience, completely different questions, a different understanding. Therefore, if you genuinely wish to participate and learn, just enroll in the Basic Course. For those watching the recording, we'll probably leave a link under this video. And for those watching us live, tech support has even sent it in the chat. Come join us there. And in one of the very first lessons, we go into great detail about exactly how this so-called circle of silence actually operates. Because that's how, in principle, our entire nature works. We become quiet and still, entering fully into the present moment, and then more light begins to emerge. As more light appears, it highlights more of our inconsistencies on our inner screen. These inconsistencies then begin to be purged and cleansed. This pot begins to boil and everything starts to bubble out of it. And at some point, once you've undergone this cleansing, you once again re-enter the present moment and allow that light to flow through. And that's how, little by little, you begin to restore yourself. But let me emphasize this again. So this is a restorative technique that restores you, harmonizes you, makes you more vigorous, healthier, happier, and so on. But in order to truly come to an awakening, to enlightenment, to a full realization, to transcend all illusions beyond all boundaries and concepts. What Buddha himself spoke about, you know? You won't be saved by this practice alone. What's truly needed here is a complete decision to begin serving your own space, your entire world. Okay, covered it. Did I explain well? All right. Valeria asks, when I try to focus my attention on my body, I don't perceive anything there, which makes it quite challenging for me to do. Valeria, please pay attention. The truth is, you're not meant to see anything there at all. The mind, you see, carries a certain expectation that the moment I perform this action, I ought to perceive something, or I should be able to visualize something. But this is merely a mental construct. That would be completely false because it's the very same illusion, the very same screen. Your specific task is simply to return your attention back to your body. Something might happen there or nothing might happen. It depends on the power of your attention, but the muscle of this attention is trained precisely by returning. I remembered that I drifted into thoughts. Right now, who is sitting and not keeping their attention in the body? We agreed, didn't we? You're listening to me, and now your attention is in your body. Most of you have likely already drifted off into thought and aren't doing this. Why? No habit, no training. Your attention drifted. Did you recall that? Snap, you returned. And this returning. Snap, you returned. Snap, you returned. That's what's important. And this repeated returning is exactly what trains the strength and focus of your attention. And when the power of attention becomes truly strong, that's precisely when you can observe that a chick, with its potent, pure, and utterly innocent focus like a newborn, exceptionally naive and clean hatchling, was able to grasp and draw the mechanical robot box toward itself. And when your loving attention becomes just as heartfelt and powerful, then you truly are an adult, a wise person with valuable life experience. Can you imagine the immense amount of good and how incredibly beneficial your contributions could be to this space? But why are we unable to do so at the moment? Because our actions can stem from our minds, from fears, and from insecurities. Imagine if we were given the power to change material reality right now. What a mess we'd make. You just think badly of someone, and boom, they're sick. Or perhaps you told someone to burn, and he burnt. Well, it's simply impossible to grant this to individuals lacking this profound inner wisdom and maturity, as they would undoubtedly cause a great deal of trouble. Do you grasp this? And until the screen is clean, that is, there are these levels of consciousness. Tomorrow, Sasha will discuss the levels of consciousness. Until a pure level of consciousness is attained, there can be no discussion whatsoever of any CD powers. And when they do appear, you might not even need them, because you won't use them. The only thing that will genuinely interest you is the source itself, and a deeper immersion into the absolute, which can no longer be adequately described by words. Okay, another question. Larissa asks, but do meditations truly work, or do we first need to completely clear our subconscious mind of all its blocks and fears? Is it like repairing a tooth, where you first remove the decayed material and then proceed to install something new and fresh? Is that right? So, I gather there's some doubt whether meditations are effective until we've purged our subconscious? Well, let's take a look here. I'm not sure currently. There are many prevailing stereotypes, many ideas about exactly what meditation is and so on. What we teach and refer to as meditation or mindfulness techniques is the process of activating your inner nature. This very process purifies your entire subconscious, addressing all your subconscious fears, complexes, and everything accumulated in this life, during childhood, and in past lives. All of this represents a tremendous experience of this very spirit. It has become imprinted on this screen and hinders the flow of this energy. And when you start directing your attention during meditation towards reality, towards its source, towards your body, and towards everything that exists right here in this present moment, this energy starts to flow, and that's exactly when the subconscious begins to cleanse itself. I just drew a circle. That's how this operates. So you direct it, the energy goes, and suddenly it expels some block. But that is a lengthy process, if you don't amplify it with selfless team service. Also, we employ laughter therapy, breathing exercises, and body techniques. So it's a very comprehensive system. Additionally, it's essential to have someone knowledgeable about your situation who can effectively guide you. However, we will discuss the step-by-step process in more detail tomorrow. You'll have a meeting with Sasha to talk about it, but this is just for your understanding. So, meditation is specifically designed for the subconscious to be cleansed. Otherwise, naturally, we won't be able to progress any further. All right, Evgenia, a question from the Telegram chat. The limitation of my perception is like in Richard Bach's Jonathan Livingston Seagull. I believe you're referring to Jonathan Livingston, correct? It managed to teleport, but such a feat is impossible for humans. Well, we've already addressed that question today. So the thing is, there's another interesting book on the topic. You can search for it on YouTube. There's an audiobook available there. One Autumn Day on the Highway. In short, the meaning is that the driver simply encountered an individual possessing such remarkable capabilities. And he couldn't just stand there in the rain. He was capable of performing levitation and various other extraordinary feats. But all of this was not really practical or feasible. He simply took it for granted as if it were given. And then there's also, Steve Jobs' treasured book, which is a autobiography of a yogi. If I'm not mistaken, that's indeed what it's named. Where it is naturally described that the masters in India, this was not God knows when, back in the 19th century, or even the early 20th century, are able to move between various locations by utilizing what is referred to as teleportation. You see all these fantastical things. Oh, how great, I can teleport, I can pass through solid objects, I can bend a spoon just like in the Matrix. All of that is merely a game. But now picture yourself as a grown-up adult. Are you going to sit in a sandbox now, diligently scooping up sand with a small shovel to make a mound, or perhaps drive a toy car around with such keen interest? Probably not, right? If you don't have a child you want to play with, then engaging in such activities is simply impractical. Why would you even bother with that, right? Similarly, for a mature individual who possesses such abilities, it means that, one must expend a certain amount of this spiritual strength and energy to change material reality. Why? What is the expediency? What's the practical purpose? So, a mature person, or rather a mature spirit, let's call it that, wouldn't engage in such things. You won't recognize an enlightened master by their outward appearance. You won't discern them. No one will boast to you. These are individuals on an entirely different plane. You will never find out about it unless there is such an expediency or practical reason for it. And in this book is about actual real-life events. The person used his abilities when it was appropriate. So they got into an accident, the car started flying off a cliff, and he brought it back. Tech support is prompting me. It's called Author is Pavel Verzhenov. The book is One Autumn Day on the Highway. If you're interested, you can read about all these Siddha's supernatural abilities like passing through objects and teleporting. All of that is incredibly inspiring, exciting, and highly motivating. But, when it truly comes down to performing substantial spiritual work, like going and sincerely apologizing to your mother, or perhaps going to truly thank your loved ones simply for their very existence, and to genuinely open your heart and soul to allow yourself to remain vulnerable, and open up about your feelings, to express your love to them. And that's exactly what people are unwilling to do. However, everyone is good at discussing how we'll be able to teleport once we transition to those more subtle levels of consciousness. Friends, let's talk about what's relevant for us step by step right now. What's relevant for us right now is to bring our attention back to our bodies, to truly love our lives, and to be truly grateful that they even exist. To foster better relationships with your immediate environment and loved ones, to serve them, to broaden your understanding and perception, to practice and train your focus, and to rediscover ancient methods that bring you back to the present moment. For those who are interested, please feel free to join our team, come and study, and attend this basic course. There we'll help you get started in a serious professional way, not just, when I'm learning to swim, I don't just go to the bathtub to bathe, I go to a pool with a coach. Well, that's precisely what this is about. And as for all those discussions about the Siddhas, you can set them aside for now. What's the point of talking about what will be in university? What kind of algorithms will I be studying there? And what about integrals? When I'm sitting, for example, in first grade and learning the multiplication table, right? Let's discuss what's relevant. All right, Anar is asking a question. When a person bothers you with everything they do, say even their voice, then this shows that we have it within our bodies. This person reminds us to remove something. Let me explain it one more time. So let's go over it again. Look, there's someone really getting on my nerves. Like, I genuinely can't even tolerate his voice. How does he look? How does he speak? How does he smell? There's just something about him that irritates me so intensely that I truly cannot stand the sight of him. And this constant irritation, it's just completely consuming me. My attention is on him, my energy. I worry about it. I spend my strength on it. So, you understand? You are expending your vital life energy on your very own irritation and your own anger. So, it's really boiling and bubbling inside of you, just like that pot I was illustrating. What is it that needs to be done about this? First and foremost, you must realize that what the environment is revealing to me is that I possess anger and also irritation. If it wasn't manifested through this individual, it would inevitably appear through another person or via a different circumstance. You simply must acknowledge that this quality resides within you. Embrace it by saying yes to it. Yes, that's how it is now. Is it a fact? Yes, it's a fact. There's no sense in fighting with facts. The present moment is what it is. God is as He is right now. My consciousness simply showed me I have this. A fact, great, good. I thank you, consciousness, for revealing to me that I am this angry and irritable person. Well, what can I truly do about it? That's just how I am. How should I proceed? I shouldn't really blame myself for this, or scold myself for it. What now? Should I internalize guilt over this too? No, absolutely not. Just acknowledge it and say, yes, that's okay. What can I do now that I'm aware of this? Since I'm in a state of awareness, observing that I have anger, it means I am no longer that anger, right? I'm not stuck in this anger as if glued to a screen. I have somewhat unstuck myself from the monitor. I see that, there is anger, and it is bubbling up inside me. I've already shifted my attention slightly. My point of focus has moved. Can I now direct my awareness into my body? Yes, I can. What's going on within my body? Some sensations, and the mind keeps saying how it can't stand the sight of that person, and something's bubbling in the body. But you're already pulling your attention out of your mind. It's like sticky quicksand. The mind tries to pull your attention back in, but you train more and more, and with time it becomes increasingly easier. It becomes more pleasant and more conscious, and then at the snap of a finger you simply begin to realize, oh, why am I suddenly so discontent? And just like that, it's gone. Suddenly all became calm, joyful, and peaceful. So this very source, which we drew an eye for right here, it's truly everywhere. And that is a state of deep peace. And following that deep peace, joy naturally emerges. And beyond that is something we won't discuss verbally. So when you bring your focus back to the present moment, you invariably start cultivating this deep peace. But as I've mentioned, doing this by yourself, particularly in a large city with numerous distracting elements, is quite challenging. Therefore, it requires diligent practice and learning. But here, I would like to truly encourage you and assure you that everyone will succeed. And indeed, everyone will definitely succeed. But for those who are resolutely determined to achieve this, well, for those who are really ready to do everything possible to let this light pass through them, flow through them, and illuminate everything around them. For this to happen, it is essential to begin interacting with the people around you in an entirely different way. And that, undoubtedly, is the most challenging aspect. Well, even in the Holy Scriptures, it is explicitly stated, remember what Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. That's the entire truth right there, but just try putting that into practice or doing it. First yourself, yes, as yourself. That is, you still need to love yourself with all your quirks, and then your neighbor too. That's what we're revolving around. Okay, any other questions? Galina asks, do I direct heartfelt warmth towards people? If you were to direct it towards mundane tasks like cleaning your room, cooking a meal, or even towards a painting you're working on, then that wouldn't be considered service. In fact, it would be quite unsuitable for expressing and conveying love. So, observe closely. If you direct your attention to space, loving attention, it is service in any and every case, it doesn't matter. In addition, we strongly suggest that you first and foremost focus on this. We say do everything with soul, or direct loving attention, or reverent attention. But first, learn to direct it to your posture and how you are holding yourself. Here I stand. And I feel good. I'm doing it with soul somehow. Here I am. Not just standing here waiting for the broadcast to end, but I am standing tall. Then how you sit, how you walk, how you listen. This means your attention starts to be drawn towards space. You begin to seek that connection with it, with this energy. It is everywhere. And then you paint a picture. It's really easy to direct loving attention when you're in a creative state, or even when you're just doing everyday tasks. If you're stuck in depression, feeling bad, unable to get up to lift yourself. There, I listened to what Sergey said. He told me to focus loving attention, but I wake up and I don't even feel like living. Begin by cleaning up your apartment. Just start moving things around. Can I wash a mug? Yes, I can. Another plate? Yes, I can. And just like that, you've started this energy and it's flowing. So that's where you need to begin. However, we are constantly surrounded by these various objects. This is, well, something you begin with, but it's not quite at our level yet, is it? So, as you interact with others, you essentially start training yourself on them because you can receive feedback from them quite rapidly. You've energized yourself by restoring your vitality through engagement, tidying your apartment, creating a painting, doing the dishes. You've refilled your own cup. Now, allow this to extend even further, even more profoundly. You are, in effect, bringing into play the more distant levels within your actual experience. So, what exactly are the nearer levels? That's our body, right? It's our surroundings, our loved ones, our apartment. Well, anything that falls within our sphere of self-interest, right? So if I clean my apartment, I'm interested in that because it's part of my egoism. That way I'll have a clean, tidy, and healthy space. But what about those you direct it to further? Your colleagues at work, or even strangers, people you don't really depend on. And so you are already interacting with them from this heart center, and that's an entirely different experience altogether. The more distant these layers are, the greater the amount of energy available. Our team aims to channel this energy on a massive scale, to let it flow through us and out to the world on a massive scale. That's why we're establishing retreat centers all across the globe for complete strangers, so that this knowledge can be made available to everyone who is truly prepared to undertake the inner work of applying it. And this is our whole purpose, our service to this space, to this entire world, to transmit not just this information, not simply this particular method, but rather we transmit this profound energy, this inner power, this intense desire to truly live, to let this energy flow freely. I'm standing here all emotional, waving my hands at you. Why? Because I genuinely want to impart this knowledge to you so that you can begin to integrate and utilize it within your own life, rather than merely hearing about it during our sessions and broadcasts. I just have one more question for you, if you don't mind. Larissa asks a question. The world is a mirror, and everything is within us. People, situations will be shown to me from the outside. If there's something we don't like in other people, it actually reflects something within ourselves that we haven't yet accepted, especially our own shadow side. But how do we accept that? End of question. I didn't quite get it. Again. So, Larissa asks, the world is a mirror. What's within us, people, situations, they show something to us from outside. Okay, good, understood. The world is a mirror. Let's say we've drawn this screen. Let's imagine this here is the exact same as a screen, and it's also a mirror. It is just the light showing me where I'm not in alignment. The statement is clear now. Okay. If there's something we find displeasing in others, it is something we actually possess within ourselves. What we don't accept. This means that there's something within us that we aren't accepting, our shadow side. So look, if there's something we notice in others that we don't appreciate, it's possible that very quality exists within us, or perhaps it's reflecting something back to you. For instance, I might find it bothersome when someone is untidy. What does that imply? Is the world trying to tell me that I too possess some disorganization? I highly doubt it. It indicates that I hold the belief that everything should be kept in order, and every aspect should be well structured. In other words, I have a certain concept that everything should be meticulously organized, and that everything around me should be kept very tidy. And the universe sends me these chaotic, untidy people who completely ruin my idea that everything should always be perfectly in order. And I can't stand the sight of these messy people. So look, what the universe is showing me is simply that that I simply have a concept, a certain idea of how things ought to be. But people are all different. The world is structured in many ways. It is truly diverse. And I just need to, in essence, not dislike this person or untidiness, but rather embrace my life as it truly is and exclaim, wow, what incredible diversity exists in the universe. Even such people exist, and if I need to clean up, I do. It doesn't affect my actions. So, to summarize in answer to your question, what you observe in someone doesn't demand that you activate your intellect and think, all right, I see he's quite proud. Perhaps I too possess a similar pride within myself. I somehow need to really come to terms with my pride, to step beyond my own arrogance. All this analysis, everything here, is just the mind working again. You'll just get bogged down in those concepts again. That's a matter for psychologists. You can work through that with them, and that could take years. Your task, as soon as you find yourself in a state of irritation, is to bring your attention back to reality, to your body, to being present, to truly listening, and to projecting loving attention. And then these types of situations will no longer occur in your life. Evgenia asks, it's interesting, how exactly do you feel about or address shadow side manifestations? I just explained my stance on how I perceive shadow side manifestations. The thing is, you understand, what does a shadow side manifestation mean? I explained it to you. Light shines onto the inner screen of your perception of reality, of your very life, onto that filter of yours, that film through which you view this world. And where that light does not penetrate, that is where the shadow lies. These are your shadow side manifestations. That is all. That is any concept, idea, pattern, fear, it sort of casts a shadow, and light doesn't pass through there. So, if you perceive these shadow side manifestations within yourself, at a minimum, you admit to their presence, confirming, yes, I possess them. Afterward, you express gratitude for having them revealed to you. This in itself slowly begins to dissolve them, little by little. And you begin to practice redirecting your focus. That means detaching yourself from the screen. It's like you're in the middle of playing a computer game. So you're sitting at the monitor, and a little character is running on the screen, and you've completely immersed yourself in this character, and you're running around as them. But try to unstick from the monitor, to see that it's a game, that it's a monitor, that it has absolutely nothing to do with you, and that you are existing outside the boundaries of this game. You are the one who is observing this game, and then further into that. We won't talk about that today. You are not even the one observing the game, because neither are you the player, nor are you the observer either. As soon as you define that, people sometimes enter samadhi or some experience. Oh, I am space, I feel. That's it. As soon as you identify with something, I am space, meaning I, some other I, again. I am the player at the computer, I am the player of this game, I am this observer. That's it. As soon as I appears, that's not you. This attention, where it originates from, is inherently unable to perceive itself. The moment you identify with any specific form or a certain concept or even a particular space, you become trapped within it once more. But that's a topic for another time. After we fully grasp the fundamentals, we can then discuss how individuals, upon awakening like our team members, they come to perceive themselves as space. These are various stages that must be navigated, yet they all recognize this is far from the ultimate conclusion. That's to say, yes, it's him, I'm fully alive. Recently, one of our girls has been having such a profound sensory experience. She says, I'm standing, she says, in the shower, and this mat, it serves me so well, it wants to. This shampoo, it's like everything living around me. It all serves me in this way. This very space, it truly is me. And here's some inseparable part. Love is indeed emanating from me, but she also understands that this is just one stage. What's next? Consciousness is truly infinite. Delving into the absolute is a path that's profoundly astounding, something that words simply cannot convey. Therefore, I simply want to ignite within you the desire to live so profoundly that you experience life to such an extent that its depth truly feels boundless. Or rather, it doesn't just seem that way. It is indeed infinite. That's it. So, all these shadow sides, what they are, where they are, how they manifest, just set that aside. Why do you even need to bother with that? Shift your attention toward the original source. Then this energy will be given to you. Energy is given for action. and then your life becomes joyful, happy, beautiful. Okay, well, I've talked too much already. One more question. No, that's all. Friends, thank you for your questions, for coming, and for dedicating your time to your development. And tomorrow you'll be meeting with Sasha Kozina at 8 p.m. Moscow time. There will be a continuation of our session. I sincerely hope that what I've shared today has been helpful for all of you. For those of you who are watching the recorded version, there's a link directly below this video that leads to our next live stream. So go ahead, transition to the next part and watch the second segment. And until we meet again, I wish you all the very best.